Hello and welcome back to the channel. We continue our journey through the northern half of Portugal, and first we arrive at Guarda, where the thick fog makes it impossible for us to enjoy this beautiful city much. To then move to Sabugal, one of the most unknown and interesting municipalities in Portugal. And if you like our video, do not forget to like it, subscribe and activate notifications so that you know when we upload a new video. Guarda has about 40,000 inhabitants. It is the highest altitude city in Portugal, at 1506 meters, and is one of the most important cities in the Portuguese region of the Beira Alta. As for parking, you will not have a problem, as you will have several spacious and free parking, located very close to the historic center, and of which we leave you the location in Google Maps. As we mentioned at the beginning of the video, Guarda welcomes us with a thick fog. We start our tour in the castle, built in 1199 by King Dom Sancho I, and of which only a piece of the wall, the Tower dos Ferreiros of Gothic style, and the Tower of the Tribute, where the Museum of the Heritage of Guarda is installed, and where if there is no fog, you will enjoy a beautiful view of the city. A short distance from the castle, in the square Luis de Camoes, is the Cathedral of Guarda, which stands out for its fortified appearance. Built between the years 1390 and 1540, at first in Gothic style, it later received additions such as its manuline windows and its Renaissance ornamentation. Inside, you can enjoy its Renaissance altar retable, carved in stone in the 16th century. On the left side of the cathedral, you can see the statue of Sancho I of Portugal, who granted the Guarda its constitutive letter in 1199. As we said, the cathedral is located in the square Luis de Camoes, a beautiful square surrounded by houses on arches from the 16th century. Here we find the building of the old town hall of Guarda, which later housed the prison, the notary and the court, and in whose porch atrium, in the side walls we find two beautiful ceramic panels. From the square, we leave on several narrow streets, surrounded by granite palaces and old houses, such as the street Francisco de Passos, where we continue our visit, arriving a little time to the Church of San Vicente, a church of medieval origin, rebuilt in the year 1790, and with a beautiful decoration of tiles in its interior. Around this church we find the Jewish neighborhood, whose presence was notable in the city. Most of the buildings date back to the Middle Ages, and retain the original architecture with two doors, one narrow to access the upper floor, which was the family's residence, and another wider for the ground floor store, as most of the Jews were engaged in trade. Traveling through the Jewish neighborhood we arrive at the Porta da Erva, one of the gates, which, like the King's Gate, passes through the medieval wall that surrounded and defended the city. Already outside the wall, we find the Church of Mercy, a modest temple that turns out to be the most important Baroque hour in the city. In its interior we find several altars, highlighting among all the major altar, adorned by a rechargeable 18th century retable. As a curiosity, in the interior we can observe the donations that the most courageous neighbors of the guard made to the church, where we ended the visit, as the weather continues to deteriorate, and we headed to Sabugal, a place that we will visit the next day. Sabugal has approximately 3,000 inhabitants, and is located very close to the border with Spain, playing a key role in the defense of the borders with the neighboring Kingdom of Castile. As for parking, you will not have a problem, as you will have several spacious and free parking, located very close to the historic center, and even have a small free service area for caravans. Sabugal gives access to the Sierra de Malcata, primarily intended for the preservation of the Iberian lynx, of which we find a statue in the square April 25th, where we begin our visit to the city, rising by narrow streets to the Praça de República, in which on one of the sides, we find the Casa dos Britos, a 17th century palace from which only its photogenic facade is preserved. From one of the sides of the town hall, we reach the Porta de Vila, the only door that remains standing from the wall built by Alfonso IX de Leon, and reinforced by a bell tower, the so-called Torre Senaira, which today is one of Sabugal's symbols, and the place where the most significant clock of the city is located. We crossed the door and entered the fortified entrance, where we continued to climb toward the castle, but as is our custom, before arriving, we lost ourselves by the alleys of the historic center. After walking through the narrow alleys of the historic center, we finally arrive at the castle, which is also known as the Castle of the Five Corners, due to the unusual shape of its Tower of Honor, and is one of the best preserved castles in the country. It is believed that the castle was erected on an ancient prehistoric castle, and although the initial fortification was ordered to be built by Alfonso IX of Leon, King Dinis reinforced it with the magnificent Tower of the Homage, and whose wife, Saint Elizabeth of Portugal, starred in these walls the known as the Miracle of the Roses, according to which, the Queen used to make donations to the poor, something that her husband saw with bad eyes. One day King Dinis surprised Elizabeth with bread on her foreheads for the most disadvantaged, at which point the food turned into roses, which caused the king to begin to accept the beneficial works of his wife. The castle can be visited from beginning to end, including access to the towers, from where you can enjoy an impressive panorama of the city and the Malcata mountain. The tribute tower, 30 meters high and pentagonal shape, can also be visited, although you have to look carefully where you step, as the access steps are very treacherous, and climbing inside the tower can become a risk sport, a risk that is worth taking, for the panoramas that we will enjoy at its top. We end our visit at the Museum of Sabugal, located next to the walled site, a free entrance museum, and although small in size it is perfect for entering the history of the municipality, from its first settlers in the prehistory, to the present. And at the Museum of Sabugal we end our visit to the city, and we continue our tour through the northern half of Portugal, where there is still a lot to go and enjoy.